Chapter 3. Race to the battlefield. "Alert Captain Schultz now," Alexander ordered. "Yes, sire," the guard said as he ran off to do so. Alexander gripped the battlements as he tried to make out just how many people the attacking force had. Damn it, he thought. Who the hell are they? The Royal Flame wouldn't do something like this, would they? Well, maybe. More incendiary arrows began to follow the first, although most of them were caught by the castle's high walls if you made it over. What's the point in using incendiary arrows against a stone castle? Alexander wondered, watching as one struck the side of the tower and sputtered out. I guess they could be targeting the wooden walkways, but what's the situation? Alexander turned as Schultz ran up to him, followed by a guard. "I'm not really sure," said Alexander. "There's a lot of people out there, though. Well, over 100 at least. They've shot a dozen or so incendiary arrows at us, but I haven't seen them do much else." "Weird," said Schultz. "Seems like they're taunting us or something. You, go and get our archers up here. We'll show them they've got our attention." "Yes, sir," the guard said, starting off again. "Get some men to put out the fires as well," Alexander called. The guard nodded back to him before continuing on his way. "You don't think they're Royal Flame agents, do you?" Alexander asked, turning back to Schultz. "Could be, but I don't see the point," said Schultz. "Unless they're posing as revolutionists and trying to run a false flag attack, but I don't see how they could expect that to work." "They might be getting desperate," Alexander suggested. "Maybe." The two men stood, watching from behind the merlons as the horde of figures slowly drew closer, and the arrows began to come more quickly, and with better aim. A couple of the bridges behind them, connecting the battlements to the two southernmost towers, caught fire and were quickly engulfed. "This has to be more than just some Royal Flame stunt, right?" Alexander thought as another blazing arrow sailed overhead. "They can't be this desperate, can they?" A small group of men, less than 24, arrived before too long, all of them carrying bows and wearing quivers at their hips. A few carried crossbows instead, but they were the exceptions. "Is this all of our archers?" Alexander asked, frowning. "Might as well be," said one of the archers, a thin-faced man with darkish blonde hair. "All the other units are still in Marquetaine." "Wait, what?" said Schultz, failing to hide his concern. "Where are all the castle's archers?" The guard from before emerged from the group of archers. "I couldn't find them, sir," he replied, avoiding the captain's gaze. "Commander Johnson's squadron was the only one I could find." "I wonder why," Alexander muttered dryly. "It could be," Schultz said, glancing at him. "But I still don't see why." "It doesn't matter why," Alexander said sharply. "We can't ignore this." "Commander Johnson, was it?" "Yes, sire," said the thin-faced man. "That's me." "All right, Johnson," said Alexander. "I don't care who those bastards are or why they're doing this. I want you to send them all to hell." "I can do that, sire," Johnson replied with a smirk. "All right, men, you heard him. Get in positions." The small squadron spread out and took positions between the merlons. "Knock!" Johnson shouted, as one of the 20 men knocked their arrows. "Draw!" Each man pulled back his drawstring. "Loose!" 20 bowstrings snapped. A mixture of arrows and crossbow bolts flew at the shadowy horde below, and all fell short. A flaming arrow struck one of the archers in the neck before he could move to cover. The man staggered backwards, trying to cry out, before he stumbled over the edge of the battlement and fell to the entryway, several dozen meters below. "Damn it, no one hit anything," Johnson cursed. "They must be out of range." "They hit Brooks just fine," snapped a young red-haired archer as he nodded to where the fallen archer just stood. "Maybe you all need to get some more practice. You didn't hit a damn thing either, Raynor. I just needed a warm-up shot." "All right then, show us what you got," said Johnson. "Knock." The archers composed themselves and knocked their second arrows. "Draw," Johnson ordered. "Loose." As the arrows and bolts rained down once more, one managed to find its mark. The scream the figure made as it collapsed was not human. It was far too high. "Well, I'll be damned," said Johnson. "Bloody good shot, Raynor." Raynor made no reply. He could only stare down at whatever he just shot with a stunned expression. What the hell are they?" he muttered. Alexander swallowed, his gaze fixed down at the horde below. "I've heard that scream before." "They're not Royal Flame," he said with a shaky voice. They They're the Skrulls of the underground. Zodex awoke to the sounds of distant shouting and sat up abruptly. What's going on? He thought. It's not morning already, is it? He got out of bed and walked to the window. He looked out over the north side of the castle and saw soldiers rushing around in various places below. Something must be going on. A flaming arrow tore past the window. Zodex stumbled back in surprise. Are we under attack? He thought, confused. By who? Oh, I thought the war was supposed to be over. Zodex hurried to his door and walked out. He made his way through a short hallway to a spiral staircase that ran through the center of the tower. He ran up 2 floors to the top of the stairway and out onto the tower's rooftop balcony that wrapped around the base of the golden spire. As he looked out over the south side of the castle from its highest accessible point, Zodex gasped. What must have been at least 1,000 people were spread out across the plains surrounding the southern part of the castle. Occasional streaks of burning light flew from the horde on the plains at the castle battlements. It is an attack, he thought, swallowing. But why? He stood there, frozen for a moment, only able to stare at the tiny figures laying siege to the castle from far below. Finally, he took a deep breath. It doesn't matter why, he thought, clenching his fists. Wherever they're doing this, I have to help stop them. Maybe you don't need to be good with a sword to be a good prince, but a good prince should be willing and ready to fight when he needs to, and this is definitely one of those times. With that thought, he turned and started back inside, to return to the armory. Amy awoke to the medic urgently shaking her. Come on, Fox, get up. What do you want? Amy mumbled, blinking. You have any idea what time it is? Come on, Fox, the medic snapped. I can get someone to carry you, but I have a feeling that wouldn't be much fun for anyone involved. Amy sat up with a groan and rubbed her eyes. Wait, what time is it anyway? As sleep faded from her, she became more aware of her surroundings. The infirmary staff were running around frantically, loading patients onto stretchers, or simply waking those who were well enough to walk on their own. What's going on? Amy asked, blinking the last of the sleep from her eyes as she sharply turned to face the medic. There's a situation going on outside, the medic replied. I'm not entirely sure at the moment, but we're evacuating everyone to the lower floors just to be safe. Now get your ass up and get moving. You did say you were feeling better, right? What kind of situation? I just said I don't know, the medic replied, biting back her irritation. Does it matter? Just come on. The medic grabbed Amy by the arm and dragged her to her feet with startling ease. Amy reluctantly started after the infirmary staff and other patients, heading towards the stairwell as the medic ran off to wake someone else. A deep, blasting note rang out, barely muffled by the walls of the infirmary tower. Was that? Yeah, it had to be, Amy thought, stopping in her tracks. She tilted her head to listen for another note, ignoring the annoyed looks of the people shoving past her. Another one came a few seconds later. The castle war horns, she thought with a strange lightness in her chest. Someone must be trying to attack us. Well then, whatever dumb bastards decided to do that are going to live to regret it. Not for very long, though. Smirking slightly to herself, Amy started walking again, following the crowd into the stairwell and down 3 floors to the ground level. However, once there, Amy broke off from the crowd and exited the tower, breaking into a run as she headed towards the courtyard. It didn't take long for her to reach it. Within the courtyard, several houses and market stalls had caught fire, and dozens of people were making their way to the castle's main building at the western end of the courtyard, back in the direction Amy had come from. Amy pushed through the fleeing crowd and eventually made her way to her own house, which was one of the many buildings that was still untouched. Thank life. She opened the front door and dashed through the living room to her bedroom at the back corner of the small house. She found a pair of dark leather boots at the foot of her bed and slid them on before opening her closet. Various articles of clothing and a few other random items littered the floor of the closet, while a couple of gray jackets identical to the one Amy was already wearing hung from the back wall, alongside an old black hooded cloak. Amy pulled the cloak off its hook and slid it over her head. Then she went over to her bedside table, where a pair of long throwing knives had been laid neatly in their sheaths. Amy sat on the bed and quickly strapped the sheath's blades to her calves. All right, she thought, as she stood up and started for the exit. That's not going to be enough. I'm going to have to find an armory. Are you sure it's a good idea to engage them directly? Alexander asked. At the moment, it's our best option, Schultz replied. On their own, our 20 archers are no match for those things out there. Given the current situation, direct counterattack is our best option to end this quickly. The two men stood in the entryway, watching as 100 or so mounted soldiers lined up facing the raised drawbridge. I'm just hoping the situation with the rest of our soldiers isn't the same as it was with the archers, Schultz added. We've at least managed to get Deventer's squadron out here, and I think more are on their way, but I guess we'll see. A tall but rather slender knight rode up to the head of his company. He was dressed from head to toe in elaborate silver and gold armor, with a blue cloak flowing from his shoulders. "Ready, Deventer's squadron?" the knight called, raising his sword to the sky. "Yes, sir," the 100 men called back in unison. At the knight's signal, the drawbridge began to lower. Once it had stopped, the knight pointed through it with his sword, toward the horde of enemies outside. "Advance!" he barked. With that simple order, he spurred his horse on and charged across the drawbridge, the rest of his squadron following close behind. They galloped across the drawbridge in pairs and began to spread out as they reached the plains and swept towards their targets. "How do you think they'll fare?" Alexander asked as the last few pairs began to ride across. "They should be able to hold their own until we can send out more reinforcements," said Schultz. "I hope that won't take very long. But regardless, Sir Deventer's squadron is one of the most formidable in the kingdom." "Good," said Alexander. "There you are, Alex. What the hell's going on?" Alexander turned as Rochelle ran over to them, dressed only in an ornate nightgown. "What are you doing out here?" Alexander asked. "All non-military personnel are supposed to be taking shelter." "So, you get to be military personnel and I don't?" said Rochelle. "How's that work?" Rochelle, what about the boys?" Alexander asked. "Where are they?" "I don't know, probably still asleep in their rooms." "Go wake them up," said Alexander. "You can do whatever you want after that, but please, get them somewhere safe, okay?" "All right," Rochelle said, "if it'll make you feel better." With that, she turned and started back toward the central tower. As Zodax approached the armory, he found a guard standing outside the door. "Really?" Zodax thought, slowing as the guard caught sight of him. "Doesn't he have more important things to be doing at a time like this?" "Can I help you?" the guard asked, eyeing Zodax scornfully. "I need some stuff from the armory," Zodax said, standing up straight as he reached the guard. "If you would, please let me—" "You have a permit?" "What? No, I don't," Zodax admitted. Look, sir, the castle's under attack. I just want to help fight back, so if you—" "Sorry, kid, but no," the guard said. "If there really is an attack going on, I'm sure our actual soldiers can handle it without some kid's help." "That's not the point," Zodax snapped, surprising himself. "I have to fight, and you have no right to deny me entrance to the armory." "Yes, I do, actually," said the guard. "That's my job." "You don't know who I am, do you?" asked Zodax. "I am Prince Zodax Fuchsin, son of King Alexander Fuchsin, and—" "So what if you are?" said the guard. "I don't serve Alexander Fuchsin, and I certainly don't serve his bratty little—" "Ow! Damn it!" The guard crumpled to one knee, clutching at his leg. Zodax stepped back in surprise. A knife was lodged in the man's thigh, blood flowing up from the wound. "What the hell did you do, you damn brat?" the guard yelled, glaring up at Zodax. "I didn't—" A small figure covered in a hooded cloak sped past Zodax and yanked the knife from the guard's leg before shoving open the armory door and heading inside. Zodax stared after the figure and then at the guard, trying to process what had just happened. After a moment, he recovered his senses and tried to slip past the guard. Before he could enter the armory, however, the man grabbed his leg. "Oh, no, you don't," the guard snarled. "Your little friend may have got past me, but I'm not letting you—" "Get off me!" Zodax snapped, kicking the man away with his free leg. The man let go with a curse. Zodax hurried into the armory before the guard could try to stop him again. As he entered, the hooded figure, now wearing various pieces of armor and weapons, slid past him and out the door. Thanks," Zodax said, turning around. "No problem," the figure said, with the voice of a young woman. The guard tried to grab her, but she kicked him hard in the face and ran off. "Huh," Zodax muttered. He turned back to the wall of armor and weaponry. He began to assemble a full suit of armor from various sets, finding a chainmail shirt, armored leggings, steel-plated boots, and a chest plate, heavy shoulder plates, armored gauntlets, and a knight's helmet with a sliding face guard. He then found the sword he'd tried to take before and strapped it to his belt. Finally, he grabbed a large, round shield. "All right, now I should be ready," he thought as he tested his mobility. The armor was quite heavy, but he could still move fairly well. "Good," he thought. "Now, let's go save the castle." Captain Schultz rapped on the door of a house in the courtyard. "Sir Elias," he called. "We're under attack. We need your soldiers to help fight." After a painfully long moment, The door opened and a tall, muscular man dressed in red and white answered the door. "Sorry, Schultz, but that's not happening," the man said in an almost condescending tone. "As your superior officer, I'm afraid that's not your choice to make, Delise," Schultz replied sternly. "Get your men out here, now." "You ain't my superior anymore, Schultz," Delise replied as he closed the door in Schultz's face. "Delise!" After a lengthy pause, Delise opened the door once more. "I refuse to fight alongside traitors and enemies of the Kingdom of Razlanar," Delise said, glaring at Schultz. "Don't try to deny what you are. If I'm a traitor, what does that make you?" Schultz asked. "Bliston Sharpclaw is dead. I'm merely choosing to serve his successor." "The royal flame still burns," said Delise. "Ferguson's lapdogs can fight their own battle. Disregarding and disrespecting an order from the king would generally be considered treason," said Schultz. "I'd recommend that you learn what the word means before throwing it around like that. So, if that's how you really feel, I guess your fate will be up to him. If he's feeling merciful, you will be stripped of your rank and title at the very least. So be it." Schultz took a deep breath. "Have it your way," he said. "Goodbye, Delise." Schultz left him and moved on to the next knight's house. "Damn bastard," he thought as he knocked on the door. 6 squadrons may not be enough. Hopefully I can get a few more, but if Delise is refusing to fight, Vaughn, Mills, and Rodrigo may do the same. He's always been stubborn, but I doubt he'd do something this stupid without. The door opened and a short, wide-eyed man answered the door. "Captain Schultz?" he said. "What's going on?" "Someone's trying to attack the castle," Schultz replied. "I need you to gather your squadron and get them ready for a counterattack." "Right away, sir," the short knight replied, giving him a salute. "Thank you, Sir Harrison." Harrison stood on a pair of boots by his door and started off towards the barracks tower. "Thank life," Schultz thought as he watched the man go. "I'd hoped he could be counted on. Who next? Well, it'll probably be a waste of time to try any of the other Sharpclaw elitists. It pretty much just leaves Fox. Damn it. Well, I can at least find one of his men to take charge of his squadron. That'll have to do." He hurried after Harrison towards the barracks tower. Before he reached it, he found a group of soldiers talking frantically among themselves. He recognized one as being part of the group he'd sent to escort Smith and Bill from the arena. "Davis," he called. "Captain Schultz, sir?" The man replied, saluting as he noticed Schultz. "I need you to take charge of your squadron," said Schultz. "Sir Fox is currently out of commission, but we need his men ready to fight." "Yes, sir," Davis replied before starting back towards the barracks tower and beckoning to the others to follow. "All right, that takes care of... Who the hell is that?" Schultz frowned as he caught sight of a lone knight stumbling towards the entryway. "That's definitely not right," he thought, starting towards the mysterious knight. "Some kind of royal flame nonsense, or..." Amy crouched in the corner of the entryway, securing her armor and checking her weapons. She wore a few mismatched pieces of armor on her arms and legs, all too big for her, but light enough that it wouldn't be too much of a hindrance. All of the chest plates and helmets the armory had to offer were far too big. "That's fine, though," Amy thought. "This'll do. After all, you don't need armor if you don't get hit." In terms of weapons, she had her twin knives, a quiver of arrows, but no bow, and a long sword. It might be a short sword, actually, she realized. In any case, it's got better reach than my knives, so I don't want to have to recover them over and over again. "Ready, Cunningworth Squadron?" Amy looked up. The squadron of soldiers gathered ahead of her was about to move out. "Ready, sir." All right, it's now or never, Amy thought, standing up with a deep breath. "Time for a real battle. Advance!" As the mounted soldiers began to ride across the bridge, Amy ran after them, reaching the drawbridge just behind the last few pairs of soldiers and following them across into the jaws of battle. The drawbridge slammed shut before Zodax could reach it. He cursed under his breath as he looked up at it through the slits in his face guard. "Hey, you." Zodax turned as a stern-faced soldier with piercing eyes ran up to him. "What squadron are you with?" the soldier asked. Squadron 4, Zodax replied. "There is no Squadron 4, the soldiers frowned. "Who are you?" Zodax sighed and slid his face guard up. "I'm Zodax Ferguson, sir," he said. "I just wanted to help." I see, said the soldier. Well, I'm sorry, Prince Zodax, but I can't allow you to put yourself in danger like that. Schultz? Zodax, what's going on? Zodax and the soldier both turned as Alexander approached them. Zodax, what are you doing? He asked. Your son wants to help fight, sire, said Schultz. If you allow him to, I won't stop it, but I don't think it's a good idea. No, I agree, said Alexander. Zodax, why? I have to help, said Zodax. That's what a good prince would do, isn't it? Alexander sighed. Zodax, a good prince would do what's best for his people, said Alexander. Throwing yourself in harm's way like this wouldn't do anyone any good. But I could help stop those people, Zodax insisted. I don't care if it's dangerous. I don't want to sit in here letting other people fight for me. Listen to me, said Alexander, grabbing Zodax by the shoulders. You're right. An honorable prince should fight alongside his soldiers. However, you're only 15, and you have no experience with this kind of thing. Knowing how to swing a sword doesn't prepare you for what a real battle's like. How am I supposed to get experience if you won't let me fight? That's not what I mean, said Alexander. You need more training before I can let you do something like this. I've had plenty of training, said Zodax. Experience like this is what I need. I'm not going to let you die, Zodax, Alexander snapped. You have no idea what you're getting yourself into. What do you think will happen if you go out there and get yourself killed? Do you have any idea what that would do to me? To your mother? I won't die, father, Zodax swallowed. I swear I won't. But I can't stay here, hiding while other people are out dying in my place. I don't know how much help I'll actually be, but if I stay here, we'll never know. Alexander took a long, deep breath. He let go of Zodax's shoulders and stepped back. Fine. What? Zodax blinked. You can go, Alexander sighed. If it means that much to you, I won't get in your way. Really? Yes, said Alexander. But please, Zodax, promise me this. Don't do anything too reckless, okay? Stay with the other soldiers and don't overestimate yourself. I can do that, Zodax promised. Thank you, Alexander smiled. All right, Schultz, you can send him out with the next squadron. With that, he left. Zodax turned to Schultz. So, when does the next squadron go out? It won't be long, Schultz said, pointing to the new group of soldiers gathering in the entryway behind them. Looks like they'll be heading out pretty soon. Come on. Schultz led Zodax to the head of the squadron, where one soldier stood facing the rest of the gathering company. Davis, Schultz called out to the man. This young man's going out with your squadron. What? Davis raised an eyebrow as he noticed Zodax. Why? Who is that? It's Prince Zodax, said Schultz. The king's authorized it himself. All right then, said Davis. Line up with the others, Your Highness. Thank you, sir, Zodax said, going to do just that. As he lined up and lowered his face guard, he noticed a few of the other soldiers giving him strange looks. He waited there for a moment as the last few soldiers lined up and the drawbridge began to lower. Ready, Fox Squadron? Davis finally called. Ready, the other soldiers called back. Advance! Zodax marched with the soldiers as they started crossing the drawbridge. Before long, he set foot on the grassy plain surrounding the castle. As the soldiers in front of him began to spread out, the battlefield in all its horrific glory stretched out before his eyes. Alexander stood on the battlements once more, looking out at the hill on the battlefield below. The once serene plains were now littered with dozens of corpses, human and Skrull alike, and several patches of dead grass had become lethal infernos. The several hundred castle soldiers on the field were outnumbered at least 5-1 by the horde of Skrulls. Even still, the fight seemed to be going reasonably well, and the hail of arrows on the castle had all but stopped. Alexander watched as another squadron of soldiers marched out from the drawbridge. He tried to find Zodax within their ranks, but couldn't tell him apart from the others. Good luck, my son, he thought. May life favor you well. You haven't seen Zodax, have you? Alexander turned as Rochelle walked up behind him. Oh, right, he said. Sorry, he's out there fighting. What? Rochelle said, incredulous. You're kidding, right? I thought you wanted him to take shelter. I did, Alexander replied. but he wanted a chance to prove himself, so I just don't want to take that away from him. He should be safe as long as he's careful. Of course he will, said Rochelle, rolling her eyes. It's about time you stopped underestimating him. I guess so, Alexander sighed. So where's Zach then? You found him, right? Yeah, he's still asleep, said Rochelle. What? Alexander blinked. Wait, did you take him to shelter or not? No, I decided to let him sleep, said Rochelle. You know how he hates getting woken up. Rochelle, we're being attacked, said Alexander. He's not safe up there. He's safer than Zodax is, Rochelle argued. Besides, what do you think's going to happen if I wake him up? You think he's going to want to go and hide when you sent Zodax out to fight? And don't act like he won't find out. He's going to ask where Zodax is, and I'm not going to lie to him about it. He's safer sleeping through this and trying to do something rash like Zodax. You've got a point, Alexander sighed. I guess we can let him sleep. Thanks, Alex, said Rochelle, smiling. You can't control everything, but we can at least hope for the best.